You will not break me! I stand for justice! Your cruelty will be your undoing! I defy you all!
My brother died in pieces just so the Duke of Blackwell could smile. For 47 minutes, I watched the Duke laugh while my brother's life was stolen from him. The crowd cheered like it was theater. The rain turned the mud to blood. And with every stroke of the whip, I memorized the Duke's face. Cold, perfect, untouchable. But with his very last breath, my brother looked at me through the crowd and mouthed two words that would change everything.
He fears.
Not, I'm sorry. Not, goodbye. Just those two words. He fears. My brother, brilliant, methodical Perkins, had spent 3 years investigating the Duke of Blackwell. He'd uncovered bribes, blackmail, vote manipulation, and 3 suspicious deaths. He was going to expose everything. That's why the Duke ordered him destroyed. But in his final moment, Perkins told me the one thing his research had never found. The Duke of Blackwell, the most powerful, most ruthless man in England, was afraid of something. And that fear was his only weakness. Now, 6 months later, I am standing at the Duke's front door with a new name, a fabricated past, and a year's worth of forged references. He thinks he's hiring a governess for his illegitimate daughter. He has no idea. He just invited the only person in England who knows his secret. He has no idea. I've spent 3 months learning to pick locks, memorizing his business associates, studying the layout of his estate. He has no idea that the quiet, submissive woman in the black dress and modest bonnet is Perkins Hale's sister. And he has no idea that I've come to do something far more dangerous than murder. I've come to make him trust me, to get close enough to find what he fears, to collect evidence of every crime he's ever committed, to turn his own daughter into my ally, to seduce him if necessary, to break him from the inside, because killing him would be mercy. I want him to lose everything the way Perkins lost everything. I want him to watch his empire crumble. I want him to know in his final moments before exile destroys him that the woman who brought him down was the sister of the man he murdered. But here's what I don't know yet. Here's what I won't discover until it's too late. The Duke of Blackwell didn't become the most dangerous man in England by being careless. He didn't survive 2 decades of political warfare by trusting anyone. And he didn't build an empire on secrets without learning how to spot a liar. 3 months into my perfect infiltration, he'll discover exactly who I am. And instead of destroying me, he'll do something I never expected. He'll let me continue. He'll watch me search his study. He'll feel me memorizing details when I think he's asleep. He'll know about every secret meeting, every forged document, every lie I tell, and he'll let it happen. Because he wants to see how far I'll go, because he's curious whether revenge will satisfy me or destroy me first. And because, in a way, neither of us will understand until it's too late, he'll start to care. Not love, not redemption, not forgiveness, but something more dangerous than any of those things. Recognition. 2 people who've sacrificed their humanity for power, finally seeing themselves reflected in each other. And when that happens, when the line between hunter and hunted blurs completely, we'll both have to answer an impossible question. Can you destroy someone you've started to understand? Can you love someone who killed everything you valued? Can you choose justice when mercy feels more human? This is the story of how I infiltrated a duke's household to destroy him, and how, in trying to erase his existence, I almost lost my own. This is the story of revenge that became something else entirely. Something messier, more painful, more real. My name is Serafina Hale. My brother died screaming in the rain. And for 1 year, I became someone else entirely to make his killer pay. But the price of revenge? That's something I never calculated. And by the time I realized what it would cost, it was already too late to walk away. The Duke bought her life with her brother's blood. She came to erase his existence. But some monsters are more human than you expect. And some victories feel exactly like losing. Now, let me show you how it all began. The rain turned London mud into something thick as blood. Serafina Hardy stood at the edge of the crowd, silent among the jeering voices, and watched her brother die in pieces. Not all at once. That would have been merciful. Perkins had been tied to the post in Charing Cross for 47 minutes. The Duke of Blackwell's men did not rush. They counted each stroke aloud. 38, 39, 40, Perkins no longer screamed. His body hung forward against the ropes, and Serafina could see the bone beneath the shredded cloth of his shirt. White ribs, red flesh. The crowd roared approval like it was theater, because in 1815, London, public punishment was theater. Entertainment for the masses. A reminder that the powerful could destroy you and make thousands cheer while they did it. She did not look away. The Duke stood on the raised platform to the left, arms folded, expression calm as stone. He wore black. His jaw was sharp, his eyes cold, and when he turned his head slightly to speak to the man beside him, Lord Ashford, whose vote he'd just secured with this spectacle, Serafina saw him smile. Not a cruel smile. Worse than that. Indifferent, as if her brother were nothing more than a fly being swatted. Perkins lifted his head one last time. His face was unrecognizable, swollen and split, but his eyes found hers, through the rain and the noise. His lips moved. She read the words he could no longer say aloud. Record everything. She nodded once, but Perkins wasn't finished. His eyes shifted deliberately to the Duke, then back to her. His cracked lips formed 3 more words with excruciating slowness. He fears something. Then his head dropped. The crowd's roar swallowed the moment. But Serafina had seen it, memorized it, made it sacred. 3 days later, Perkins died in their rented room above the bookshop on Paternoster Row. Fever took him. Infection had already claimed his back. He was 26 years old, brilliant, principled, and destroyed for speaking truth to power. Serafina held his hand until it went cold, memorizing his final coherent words spoken the night before. The daughter. He keeps an illegitimate daughter hidden in Yorkshire. That's his only weakness. Everything else is armor. The priest who came to bless the body asked if there was anyone to notify. No one, Serafina said, but that was a lie. There was one person who needed to know Perkins was dead, the man who killed him. And there was one vulnerability she could exploit. A 12-year-old girl named Ava. Serafina spent the next 3 months preparing with the methodical precision her brother had taught her. She did not weep. She did not break. She became a different woman entirely. First, she sold everything except Perkins's research, but she was selective. His published papers on vote buying and academic fraud were well known. What she kept were the private documents, coded correspondence with other Royal Society members who had also been silenced, financial records. Perkins had copied from public registries showing the Duke's shell companies, and most crucially, a list of 12 witnesses to various crimes, each one marked with Perkins's assessment of their reliability and leverage points. Perkins had been building a case for 3 years before he gave that speech. Serafina would finish it, but not through courts or parliament. The Duke owned both. His network of obligations stretched from the Commons to the Crown. He'd spent 2 decades cultivating debts, collecting secrets, and ensuring that anyone who might challenge him either owed him something or feared him completely. She would have to destroy him from within. She cut her hair shorter and dyed it a darker brown. She studied 3 dismissed governesses' handwriting until she could forge their references flawlessly. She spent 2 weeks observing the Duke from a distance, his patterns, his associations, the barely perceptible tells in his body language that Perkins had documented. He touches his signet ring when he lies. He stands with his back to corners when threatened. He drinks heavily only when alone, never in company. Control is everything to him. Then she studied his vulnerability. Ava Ford, illegitimate daughter, age 12. Hidden at Blackwood Hall in Yorkshire. The Duke's only acknowledged emotional attachment. Serafina learned everything she could, which servants had been there longest, which merchants supplied the estate, which neighbors gossiped. She discovered Ava had broken 3 governesses in 2 years, that the Duke visited rarely but wrote to her weekly, that the girl was brilliant, angry, and desperately lonely. Perfect. Serafina applied for the position under the name Serafina Hartley. Her forged references were impeccable. Her manner was modest. Her qualifications were exactly what the Duke required. Educated enough to be useful, submissive enough to be invisible. She was hired by letter and instructed to arrive in January. 3 months after Perkins's death, in the dead of winter, Serafina arrived at Blackwood Hall. The housekeeper, Mrs. Dalton, met her at the door. The woman was tall, gray-haired, efficient, the kind of servant who'd spent 40 years learning to see everything and reveal nothing. She looked Serafina over once, plain black dress, modest bonnet, downcast eyes, and nodded. "You'll do," Mrs. Dalton said. "His Grace does not care for fuss." "I will not provide any," Serafina replied. The hall was massive, built from dark stone that seemed to swallow light. The corridors were long and silent. Portraits lined the walls, men with sharp faces and cold eyes, generation after generation of Ford men who had taken what they wanted and crushed anyone who stood in their way. Serafina memorized every face, every name, every connection to the present Duke. Her room was small, tucked into the east wing near the schoolroom. A narrow bed, a washstand, a single window that looked out over the moors, the kind of room designed to remind you of your place. She unpacked her trunk carefully. Hidden in the false bottom were Perkins's documents, wrapped in oilcloth. Beside them, a blank journal and materials for invisible ink, lemon juice, and iron sulfate. A technique Perkins had taught her years ago when they'd played at being spies as children. But also, a vial of laudanum for emergencies, a set of lockpicks disguised as hairpins purchased from a disgraced locksmith in Southwark, and 3 sealed letters addressed to different newspaper editors to be sent only if she died. Insurance. That night, she wrote her first entry in invisible ink. Day 1. I am inside Blackwood Hall. The Duke arrives in 3 days. Ava meets me tomorrow. I have 3 years to collect evidence that will destroy him legally and publicly. Then I disappear, and he falls. Perkins said he fears something. I will discover what it is, and I will use it to break him. She blew on the ink until it vanished into the page. Outside, the Yorkshire wind howled across the moors. Blackwood Hall stood silent and still, a fortress built to keep the world out. But Seraphina Hardy was already inside its walls, and she had come to burn it down from within. But the Duke had already begun watching her, and the daughter she planned to manipulate, she was far more dangerous than anyone knew. Ava Ford was 12 years old and already knew 3 things with absolute certainty. 1. Her father did not love her. 2. Everyone who came to teach her eventually left. 3. Adults lied, but their bodies told the truth. Seraphina learned all 3 within the first hour. She found Ava in the schoolroom the next morning, sitting by the window with a book she wasn't reading. The girl did not look up when Seraphina entered. Good morning, Lady Ava. No response. Seraphina set her materials on the desk, slate, chalk, primers. She arranged them carefully, then turned to face the girl. Ava was small for her age, dark-haired like her father, with pale skin and sharp green eyes that tracked everything. She wore a blue dress, perfectly pressed, and her hands were clenched tight around the book's spine. But it was her stillness that struck Seraphina. The kind of stillness that came from years of watching adults for signs of danger. She's been hurt, Seraphina realized. Not physically, but emotionally neglected so consistently that she's armored herself. I am Miss Hartley, Seraphina said, your new governess. Ava finally looked at her. I don't want you here. I know. The girl blinked. She had expected argument. You'll leave anyway, Ava said. They all do. Perhaps. You're wasting your time. Seraphina pulled out a chair and sat, not at the desk, not in the position of authority, just across from Ava, close enough to speak quietly. Tell me about the last one, Seraphina said. The governess before me. Ava's jaw tightened. Why? Because I want to know what not to do. The girl stared at her, suspicious. Then, slowly, she spoke. She was old. She smelled like roses. She called me poor dear and looked at me like I was broken. And what did you do? I put ink in her tea. Seraphina did not react. Did it work? She left the next day. Then you are very effective. Ava's eyes narrowed. You're not afraid of me. No? Why not? Seraphina leaned forward slightly. Because I was 12 once too. And I also learned that if you make yourself difficult enough, people stop trying to hurt you. The room went quiet. Ava's fingers loosened on the book. You don't know anything about me. I know your father barely speaks to you. I know the servants whisper when you pass. I know you are called a bastard behind closed doors and ignored to your face. Seraphina's voice stayed soft. I know you are lonely, Ava. And I know you are angry. The girl's face flushed. You don't. I also know, Seraphina continued, that you are brilliant. Mrs. Dalton told me you taught yourself French from stolen books. You ride better than the stable boys. And you once corrected your father's Latin in front of his solicitor. Ava stared at her. So, Seraphina said, you can hate me if you like. You can put ink in my tea, tear my books, ignore every lesson. But I will not leave, Ava, and I will not pity you. Then what will you do? Seraphina chose her next words carefully. This was the moment. The hook. I will teach you something your father never will. What? How to protect yourself. How to see what people are hiding. How to be so quiet, so observant, that you know their secrets before they realize they've revealed them. Seraphina paused. How to survive in a world that wants to make you powerless. Ava's breath caught. Why? She whispered. Because every girl deserves to learn how to defend herself. And because Seraphina's voice dropped even lower, I suspect you'll need these skills one day. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Ava set down her book. What do we start with? She asked. Seraphina stood and walked to the desk. She picked up a slate and wrote a single word in Latin. Observatio. Observation? Ava read aloud. Yes. Tell me, what did you notice about me when I walked in? Ava studied her with new intensity. Your dress is plain, black, no decoration, governess uniform. Good. What else? Your hands. You have ink stains on your right fingers, but they're faded. You write often, but you've been traveling, so you haven't written recently. Serafina's pulse quickened. She's naturally gifted. Excellent. What else? Ava hesitated. You don't walk like the others. What do you mean? Miss Jenkins walked carefully, like she was afraid of being noticed. You walk like... Ava frowned, searching for words. Like you're looking for something. Your eyes move too much. You watch everything. Serafina's blood went cold for half a second. This girl is dangerous. She sees too much. But instead of retreating, Serafina smiled. You are absolutely right. I am looking for something. What? The truth, Serafina said simply, about everything. And I think you want the same thing. Ava's eyes widened slightly. Now, Serafina continued, let me teach you how to look without being seen, how to listen when people think you're not paying attention, how to remember details that others forget. She paused. Your father is a powerful man, Ava, and powerful men have secrets. If you learn to observe carefully, you'll always know more than they think you do. And knowledge, Serafina met her eyes, is the only real power people like us have. Ava leaned forward. People like us? Women, daughters, those the world calls illegitimate. Serafina's voice was steady. Those who must be twice as clever to survive. The girl absorbed this. Then, will you teach me everything you know? Yes. Even things my father wouldn't want me to learn? Serafina felt the moral line beneath her feet, the choice between using this child purely as a tool versus actually empowering her. She chose both, especially those things. Serafina said, But Ava, I need you to understand something. What I teach you is for your protection, your independence, your future. Never use it to be cruel, only to be safe. Ava nodded slowly. And if someone tries to hurt me, then you use everything I teach you to make sure they fail. The girl smiled for the first time. It was small, private, dangerous. I think I'm going to like you, Miss Hartley. Good, Serafina said, because we're going to work together for a long time. That evening, Serafina was summoned to the Duke's study. She had not seen him since the flogging. She had prepared for this moment for 3 months, but no preparation was enough. She found him standing by the fire, a glass of brandy in his hand. He did not turn when she entered. Mrs. Dalton tells me Ava behaved today, he said. His voice was exactly as she remembered. Cultured, controlled, devoid of warmth. No tantrums, no broken slates. She is a good student, Your Grace. She is a difficult child. Serafina's hands clenched behind her back. This man ordered my brother's death and calls his daughter difficult. She is a neglected child, Serafina said. The Duke turned. Reginald Ford, Duke of Blackwell, was 38 years old and one of the most dangerous men in England. Serafina had memorized everything about him, his voting record, his business partnerships, the 3 suspicious deaths connected to his rise to power. He was handsome in the way predators are handsome. Sharp, controlled, utterly without mercy. And he was looking at her now with the cold assessment of a man cataloging a potential threat. You speak plainly, Miss Hartley. You asked me to teach her. I cannot do that without honesty. He studied her. The fire cast shadows across his face, sharpening the lines of his jaw, the cold intelligence in his eyes. Do you know why I hired you, he asked. Because my references were impeccable. No. He stepped closer. I hired you because every other governess I interviewed flinched when I spoke. They apologized for existing. They tried desperately to please me. He stopped 3 feet away. You did none of those things. Your letter of application was competent, but not obsequious. Your references praised your skill, not your submissiveness. When I wrote to test you with an insulting question about Ava's legitimacy, you responded with cold facts about child development rather than moral judgment. Serafina's mind raced. He tested me even before I arrived. So let me ask you directly, Miss Hartley. The Duke's gray eyes bored into hers. What do you want from this position? To destroy you. To educate your daughter properly, Serafina said, so she can survive in a world that will judge her unfairly. And nothing else? What else could there be, Your Grace? His mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile. Indeed. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. The Duke returned to the fire. Ava's mother was French, an actress, beautiful, reckless, utterly unsuited for motherhood. His voice was flat. She abandoned the child and vanished. I kept Ava because she is mine, but I do not know what to do with her. Serafina forced herself to speak carefully. Then perhaps you might consider spending more time with her. Children need... I did not hire you to lecture me on parenting, Miss Hartley. The Duke's voice went cold. I hired you to make her manageable, educated, presentable enough that she won't embarrass me when I eventually acknowledge her publicly. There it is, Serafina thought. He sees his daughter as a political asset, nothing more. I understand, Your Grace. Do you? He turned back. Because if you fill her head with sentimental nonsense about deserving love and attention, you will have failed. Ava needs to learn discipline, control, how to be useful. Every word confirmed what Perkins had written. Utterly ruthless, incapable of genuine attachment except as possession. I will teach her what she needs to survive, Serafina said carefully. The Duke studied her for a long moment, then nodded. You may go. Serafina curtsied and turned toward the door. Miss Hartley. She stopped. The Duke was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. You are an unusual woman. I am not yet certain whether that will prove valuable or problematic. I hope to prove valuable, Your Grace. We shall see. She left before he could say anything else. In the corridor, her hands were shaking. She had just spent 5 minutes with the man who ordered her brother's death, had heard him speak of his daughter with clinical detachment, had felt his assessment of her like a physical weight. And she had survived without revealing anything. But something felt wrong. The way he'd looked at her. The way he'd said, unusual. He was testing her even now. Watching for cracks in her performance, I need to be more careful than I thought. That night, she wrote, Day 2. I have met the Duke. He is exactly as Perkins described. Brilliant, controlled, fundamentally incapable of seeing others as fully human. He tested me before I even arrived. I must be more careful, but I also learned something. He is isolated. He trusts no one. That isolation is both his strength and his vulnerability. Ava is sharper than expected. She noticed I look for something. I will need to be even more careful around her or train her observation skills while redirecting them away from me. 3 years. That's all I need. She heated the page until the words appeared, then blew out the candle. Outside, the moors stretched black and endless under a moonless sky. And inside Blackwood Hall, 3 people settled into their roles. The Duke, who believed he was untouchable, Ava, who was beginning to wake up, and Serafina, who had just taken her first step into the monster's lair. But none of them knew yet. Someone else was watching. Someone the Duke had summoned for a very specific purpose. Someone who would arrive in 3 months and see through every lie Serafina had constructed. The Duke's cousin, a disgraced cavalry captain with nothing to lose and every reason to destroy anyone who threatened the family name. He was coming, and he was very, very good at finding infiltrators. The Duke suspects something. Ava sees too much, and in 3 months, the one man who can recognize a soldier's discipline in a governess's walk will arrive. Serafina's perfect cover is about to face its first real test. Captain Reese Blackwood arrived at Blackwood Hall on a gray March morning, 4 months after Serafina. Ava saw him first. She was in the schoolroom practicing the observation exercises. Serafina had taught her cataloging details, reading body language, memorizing patterns, when the sound of hooves echoed across the gravel drive. Someone's coming, she said, without looking up from her slate. Serafina joined her at the window. Below, a single rider dismounted a tall man in a dark coat, moving with the careful precision of someone whose body no longer obeyed him perfectly. He favored his left leg significantly. Who is that? Ava asked. Serafina's stomach tightened. She recognized him from the research she had done in London from the military records Perkins had helped her access through his Royal Society contacts. Reese Blackwood, the Duke's first cousin, bastard son of the old Duke's younger brother, former cavalry captain, court-martialed after Waterloo for refusing to execute French prisoners who had surrendered, officially discharged for cowardice and insubordination, unofficially, according to Perkins's notes framed by the Duke, to eliminate a political rival within the family. The saber wound that shattered his knee came during the same battle. He'd crawled 3 miles to the British lines rather than be captured. Not a coward. A man with a conscience who'd been destroyed for it. Dangerous. Unpredictable. Potentially useful. Or potentially my execution. I don't know, Serafina lied. Ava watched the man hand his reins to a stable boy, her sharp eyes missing nothing. He's limping badly. Old wound. And look at how he scans the courtyard before entering military training. He's assessing threats. Serafina felt a chill. She's too good at this. I've taught her too well. Excellent observation. Now, back to your Latin. But, Ava, Serafina's voice was firm. What have I taught you about showing curiosity? The girl recited dutifully. Never let people know what you're interested in. They'll either use it against you or hide it from you. Good. So we return to our studies and learn about our visitor at dinner, where he won't realize we're observing him. Ava nodded, but Serafina saw the girl's mind working, connecting pieces, forming theories. I've created something I may not be able to control. That evening, Rhys joined them for dinner. The Duke sat at the head of the table, Ava to his right, Serafina several seats down. Rhys took the seat directly across from Serafina, lowering himself into the chair with controlled effort that couldn't quite hide the pain. He was broader than the Duke, rougher around the edges. His face was scarred, one thin line cutting through his left eyebrow, another along his jaw. His eyes were dark, sharp, and when they landed on Serafina, they stayed. She felt his gaze like a physical weight. A predator recognizing another predator. "Miss Hartley," the Duke said. "This is my cousin, Captain Blackwood. He will be staying with us while I prepare for my appointment." Serafina inclined her head. "Captain." Rhys did not return the gesture. He studied her the way a hunter studies tracks in the snow, looking for what did not belong. "A governess," he said. His voice was low, roughened by years of shouting orders across battlefields. "How long have you been here, Miss Hartley?" 4 months, sir. "And before that?" "I worked in Kent, sir." "For whom?" The Duke's fork paused midair. "Rhys." "I'm curious," Rhys said, still watching Serafina. A young woman with excellent references, burying herself in Yorkshire to teach evade. He glanced at Ava. "To teach Lady Ava. It's unusual." Serafina met his gaze without flinching. "I prefer meaningful work to fashionable society, sir." "Do you?" "Yes." "And what makes this work meaningful?" "Lady Ava deserves an education. Birth circumstances should not determine a child's future." Something flickered in Rhys's eyes. "How progressive." The Duke cleared his throat. "Rhys has come to assist with security matters as I prepare for the Lord Chancellorship. There are concerns about certain rival factions." Serafina forced herself to look mildly interested. "How unsettling." "Indeed," the Duke said, "but Rhys has experience with such matters. Don't you, cousin?" Rhys's jaw tightened. "Yes." Ava, who had been silent the entire meal, suddenly spoke. "Were you really court-martialed for refusing to kill prisoners?" "Ava," the Duke said sharply. Rhys smiled. It was unexpected, transforming his scarred face. "Yes." Ava's eyes widened. "That's honorable." The army disagreed. The army was wrong. The Duke set down his fork with deliberate precision. "Ava, you will not discuss military matters you do not understand." "But I do understand," Ava said, her voice steady in a way Serafina recognized the girl was testing something. Captain Blackwood followed the rules of war. The officers who wanted to execute prisoners were the ones breaking them. Rhys's expression shifted to something like respect. "You're well read for 12. Miss Hartley teaches me properly." The Duke's gaze swung to Serafina. "Does she? And what exactly does properly entail? History, literature, logic, Latin, mathematics," Serafina said calmly. "And critical thinking." "Critical thinking?" The Duke's voice was flat. "How modern?" "How necessary," Serafina countered. "If Lady Ava is to navigate society successfully." The tension at the table stretched tight. Then Rhys laughed, a short, genuine sound that broke the moment. "I like her. She has spine." The Duke's expression was unreadable. "Yes, she does." "Too much spine," Serafina thought, reading the calculation in his eyes. "He's wondering if I'm a threat." After dinner, Serafina excused herself and returned to the schoolroom to prepare tomorrow's lessons. She was organizing Ava's mathematics work when the door opened. Rhys stood in the doorway. Serafina straightened. "Captain, may I help you?" He stepped inside and closed the door. The click of the latch was soft, deliberate, military precision. "Tactical positioning. I wanted to speak with you," he said. "About Ava's education?" "No." He limped closer, his brass-handled cane tapping against the floor. "About you." Serafina's pulse quickened, but she kept her face calm. "I don't understand." "Yes, you do." Rhys stopped 3 feet away. "You're too perfect, Miss Hartley. Perfect references, perfect manners, perfect answers to every question. I was well trained." "By whom?" "My previous employer." "In Kent." "Yes." Rhys tilted his head slightly. "What was her name?" Serafina didn't hesitate. She'd prepared for this. "Lady Ashford. She has 3 daughters." "And where is the Ashford estate?" "Near Canterbury." "Interesting." Rhys crossed his arms, leaning against the desk to take weight off his bad leg. "Because I was stationed near Canterbury for 6 months during the war. I know every estate within 20 miles. There is no Lady Ashford." The air left Serafina's lungs. She had made a mistake. A small one, but deadly. Rhys saw it in her face. "Who are you really?" Serafina's mind raced through options. Deny, deflect, attack, retreat. A woman who needed work and created references to get it? She said, choosing partial truth. Lady Ashford exists, but she's in Devon, not Canterbury. I lied about the location because I thought it sounded more impressive. Why lie at all? Because I was desperate. My previous position ended badly through no fault of mine, and without references, I would have starved. It was plausible, believable, the kind of small deception a governess might make. Reese studied her. What happened at your previous position? The master of the house made advances. I refused. His wife blamed me and dismissed me without references. Also plausible, common, even. But Reese's eyes narrowed. You're a skilled liar. I'm a survivor. Those aren't always different things. He stepped closer. I've been watching you since I arrived, Miss Hartley. The way you move through this house. The way you watch the Duke. The way your hands shake when he speaks, but only for a second before you control it. Seraphina's throat went dry. You're afraid of him, Reese said quietly. But not the way servants are afraid. You're afraid the way someone hunting a wolf is afraid. Focused, alert, waiting for the moment to strike. Seraphina forced herself to breathe evenly. You're imagining things. Am I? Reese leaned against the desk. Tell me, Miss Hartley, what were you doing 6 months ago, before you came here? I told you. The truth this time. Seraphina met his gaze. She had seconds to decide lie better or gamble on alliance. Perkins's voice echoed in her memory. Find the Duke's enemies. They'll be your weapons. And Reese had every reason to hate the Duke. But he also had every reason to expose her if he thought she was a threat to the family. This is the moment. Choose wrong, and I'm done. Morning, my brother, she said quietly. Reese's expression shifted. How did he die? Fever? After an injury. What kind of injury? Seraphina's hands clenched, the kind that comes from a flogging. Reese went very still. Who ordered it? He asked, though his tone said he already knew. Seraphina didn't answer. Reese exhaled slowly. What was his name? She hesitated. Then, Perkins Hale. Reese's eyes widened slightly. The scholar. The one who exposed the Duke's vote-buying at the Royal Society. Yes. And you came here for revenge. It wasn't a question. Seraphina lifted her chin. I came here for justice. There's no difference. There is, Seraphina said firmly. Justice requires evidence. Revenge is satisfied with blood. I want the Duke destroyed legally, publicly, permanently. I want his crimes exposed. His title stripped, his name erased from history. Reese studied her for a long moment. How? Ava is my access point. The Duke trusts no one except her, or rather, he possesses her as his only acknowledged weakness. If I win her loyalty, I gain proximity. And with proximity comes opportunity. Opportunity for what? Seraphina walked to her desk drawer, pulled out the false bottom, and retrieved a single sheet of paper. She handed it to Reese. He read it. His expression didn't change, but his fingers tightened on the page. It was a letter, written in the Duke's hand, dated 3 years earlier. Lord Clayton, I trust you received my gift. Consider your vote on the railways bill secured. Ensure Whitfield abstains, or his son's gambling debts will become public knowledge. Regards, Blackwell. Reese looked up. Where did you get this? My brother collected evidence for 2 years before he gave that speech. He documented everything, bribes, threats, vote manipulation. He was building a case to present to Parliament. Seraphina's voice was steady, but he never got the chance. So I will. This letter alone could damage the Duke, but it won't destroy him. I know. That's why I need more. Seraphina met his eyes. I need his crimes in his own words. I need documented proof of everything he's done. And I need witnesses who will testify. How will you get that? I don't know yet, Seraphina admitted, but I have time. The Duke's appointment as Lord Chancellor is still 2 years away. That's how long I have to collect what I need. Reese was quiet for a long moment. Then he folded the letter and handed it back. I'll help you, he said. Seraphina's breath caught. Why? Because the Duke destroyed my career to eliminate a rival within the family. He fabricated evidence that made my refusal to execute prisoners look like cowardice instead of conscience. He had me court-martialed, discharged in disgrace, and ensured I could never serve again. Reese's voice was flat, emotionless. I lost everything because I stood in his way. He stepped closer. If you're here to bring him down, Miss Hale, or whatever your real name is, I want in. Seraphina stared at him. This was not part of the plan. But plans adapted. My name is Seraphina Hale, Perkins' sister. Yes, and you've spent 4 months infiltrating this house, winning a child's trust, positioning yourself close to a man who could have you killed with a word? Reese's expression was complex. You're either very brave or very foolish. I'm desperate. Those aren't mutually exclusive. He paused. What are your terms? We do this my way, my timeline, my strategy. You follow my lead. Agreed. And you tell no one. Not Ava, not the servants, no one. Agreed. And when the Duke falls, Serafina said, you get your reputation back. But the evidence, the exposure, the final blow, those are mine. Rhys held out his hand. Deal. Serafina took it. His grip was firm, calloused from years holding reins and swords. When his thumb brushed across her knuckles, whether deliberately or accidentally, something electric shot through her. She pulled her hand back. Rhys noticed. His expression shifted to something almost amused. Careful, Miss Hale. The Duke isn't the only dangerous man in this house. I know, Serafina said. That's why I'm trusting you with this. Trust. Rhys's smile was grim. Dangerous word, but necessary. I can't do this alone. No? He agreed. You can't. He turned toward the door, then stopped. One question. What? That story about the master making advances, was any of that true? Serafina met his eyes. No, I've never had a position before this one. I invented the entire employment history. So you're even better at lying than I thought. When survival requires it, yes. Rhys nodded slowly. Then we're well matched. He left. Serafina stood alone in the schoolroom, heart pounding. She had just made an alliance with another dangerous man, given him information that could destroy her if he betrayed her. But she had also gained something invaluable, an ally with military strategic training, intimate knowledge of the Duke's vulnerabilities, and his own burning need for revenge. 2 weapons now, she thought. Ava to gain proximity, Rhys to plan the execution. But what if they become liabilities? That night, she wrote in her journal, Day 120. Captain Rhys Blackwood knows the truth. He recognized my deception within hours of arrival. I underestimated how observant a trained soldier would be. He wants revenge as badly as I do. This is dangerous, but potentially invaluable. He is sharp, damaged, and ruthless. I must control this alliance carefully. He cannot know everything. Not yet. But I also felt something when he touched my hand, something I cannot afford to feel. I must be more careful. With him, with Ava, with myself. She heated the page, watched the words appear, then extinguished the flame. Outside, the moors stretched black and endless under a moonless sky. Inside Blackwood Hall, the pieces were moving into position. The Duke, who believed he was untouchable. Serafina, who planned to prove him wrong. Rhys, who wanted to watch him bleed. And Ava, who was learning to see everything, including things Serafina might not want seen. But in London, the Duke's investigators had just been given a new assignment. Find everything about a governess named Serafina Hartley. And they were very, very good at their job. The alliance is formed, the plan is in motion. But the Duke has already set his own trap, and in 6 weeks, it will snap shut around all of them. Spring came slowly to Yorkshire, turning the moors from grey to green. Serafina had been at Blackwood Hall for 8 months. Ava's education had evolved into something far more dangerous than Latin and mathematics. Watch his secretary, Serafina told Ava one afternoon as they stood in the hallway outside the Duke's study. Through the partially open door, they could see Mr. Ava Whitfield, the Duke's private secretary, reviewing documents. What am I looking for? Ava whispered. Anything unusual. The way he sorts papers, which ones he sets aside, where he keeps them. Ava watched silently for 2 minutes. Then, he's putting certain letters in the bottom left drawer. He locks it after. Good. What else? He checks the hallway twice before locking the drawer. He's worried about being observed. Excellent. That means those letters are important. Should we try to read them? Serafina felt the moral weight of that question. She was teaching a 13-year-old girl to spy on her own father. But I'm also teaching her to protect herself, she rationalized, to see dangers before they see her. Am I? Or am I just weaponizing a child for my own revenge? Not yet, Serafina said. First, we observe. Learn patterns. Only act when we understand the risks. Ava nodded, absorbing the lesson with an intensity that both thrilled and terrified Serafina. Over the following weeks, Serafina carefully cultivated her position. She made herself indispensable not just to Ava, but to the household. She reorganized the schoolroom library, cataloging books with such efficiency that Mrs. Dalton asked her to help with the main library. She assisted with correspondence when the Duke's secretary was overwhelmed, proving herself competent with complex schedules and political timing. She never asked inappropriate questions, never overstepped, never appeared ambitious. She became furniture, necessary, invisible, trusted. And the Duke noticed. One evening in early May, he requested she join him for dinner. Not in the formal dining room with Ava in his private study. Serafina arrived precisely on time, every nerve alert. The Duke was standing by the window, looking out over the darkening moors. He turned when she entered. "Miss Hartley, thank you for coming." "Of course, Your Grace." He gestured to a small table set for two. "I thought we might discuss Ava's progress privately." They sat. A servant brought food, roasted pheasant, spring vegetables, wine. The Duke poured her a glass. "You've transformed her. She was always intelligent. She simply needed guidance. It's more than that." The Duke studied her across the table. "She trusts you. She has never trusted anyone before. Children respond to genuine care. And you genuinely care for her?" Serafina met his gaze. Yes, it was true. That was the dangerous part. Somewhere in the past 8 months, Ava had stopped being simply a tool for revenge. The girl's loneliness, her sharp mind, her desperate hunger for someone to truly see her, it had gotten under Serafina's skin. She had not planned for that. "I'm supposed to be using her, not caring about her. But what if I can do both?" The Duke took a drink of wine. "Tell me about yourself, Miss Hartley. Your family?" Serafina had prepared for this question months ago. "My parents are both deceased. I have no siblings. I was educated by a tutor and trained as a governess by necessity." "No other family at all?" "None." "How lonely." "I prefer solitude to poor company." The Duke smiled. "As do I." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then the Duke spoke again. "Reese tells me you're well read." Serafina's pulse quickened slightly. "The captain and I have had few conversations, but enough for him to notice. He says you quoted Cicero during a discussion about Ava's Latin." "I did. She was struggling with a passage." "In the original Latin?" "Yes." The Duke set down his fork. "Most governesses know enough Latin to teach basic grammar. You speak it fluently. That suggests education far beyond what's typical." Serafina felt the trap closing. "My tutor was thorough." "Who was he?" She had prepared for this too, Reverend Thomas Ashford. The Duke's expression didn't change, but something sharpened in his eyes. "Ashford, any relation to your previous employer?" "Distant. That's how I secured the position." The Duke nodded slowly, but Serafina saw him file the information away. He was checking her story, testing for inconsistencies. "He's hunting. Carefully. Methodically. I need to be more careful." Then the Duke changed the subject. "I'm hosting a small gathering here in 6 weeks. Minor nobility, a few political allies. I'd like Ava to attend, briefly, to show she's being properly educated. She would benefit from the experience. I need her to make a good impression. No tantrums, no inappropriate questions, no reminders of her illegitimacy." The way he said it, clinical, transactional, made Serafina's stomach turn. "She knows how to behave appropriately," Serafina said. "Good." The Duke leaned back in his chair. "This appointment means everything to me, Miss Hartley. Lord Chancellor is the most powerful legal office in England. It will secure my legacy. But it also makes me vulnerable to enemies." "You have many enemies, Your Grace?" "Anyone with power does." He paused. "That's why I've asked Reese to stay. He may be disgraced, but he's brilliant at identifying threats." Serafina's stomach tightened. "Has he identified any?" "Not yet." The Duke's gaze intensified. "But he's watching carefully." The message was clear. Reese suspects something, and I know it. "I'm certain the captain is merely being thorough," Serafina said carefully. "Yes." The Duke's eyes never left hers. "He is very thorough. It's one of his few virtues." After dinner, Serafina walked back to her room on unsteady legs. She found Reese waiting in the corridor near her door. "We need to talk," he said quietly. She led him into her room and closed the door. "The Duke is testing you," Reese said immediately. "Those questions about your tutor, your family, he's looking for inconsistencies." "I know." "Did you give him any?" "No. I prepared false records months ago. If he investigates Reverend Ashford, he'll find a deceased vicar in Kent with the right dates." Reese paced the small room, favoring his bad leg. "It's not enough. He's suspicious now. He'll dig deeper. Then we move faster." "How?" Serafina walked to her desk and pulled out Perkins's documents. "These are the records my brother collected. Bribes, vote manipulation, threats. But most of it is circumstantial ledgers that could be explained away. Letters that suggest corruption but don't prove it directly. What do you need?" "A confession, in the Duke's own hand. Admitting to a serious crime that cannot be explained away. He'll never write something like that. Not willingly." Serafina met Reese's eyes. "But men confess things when they feel safe, when they trust someone, when they believe there are no consequences." Reese's expression darkened. "You're going to seduce him. I'm going to make him trust me enough to let his guard down. What happens after that depends on what he reveals." "That's incredibly dangerous." "I know. If he discovers what you're doing, he won't." Reese grabbed her arm. "Serafina, listen to me. The Duke is not a fool. He's manipulated powerful men for decades. If you try to play him and fail, he won't just dismiss you. He'll destroy you. Quietly. Completely. You'll disappear, and no one will ask questions. He already destroyed me, Serafina said quietly. When he killed my brother, there's nothing left to lose. There's always something to lose. She pulled free. Why do you care? Because I need you alive. If you fall, my revenge falls with you. Is that the only reason? Reese stared at her. Something unspoken passed between them. Dangerous, complicated, impossible to name. Yes, he said finally. But they both knew it was a lie. Serafina turned away. The Duke is hosting a gathering in 6 weeks. Ava will attend. I need you to help me prepare her. For what? To plant doubt in the minds of his political allies, specifically about his fitness for Lord Chancellor. How? By showing them exactly what kind of father he is. Reese's eyes sharpened. You're going to use Ava to sabotage his appointment. No. I'm going to give Ava the opportunity to speak her truth. What his allies do with that truth is their choice. That's a dangerous distinction. It's an honest one. Reese studied her. You're more ruthless than I thought. I'm exactly as ruthless as I need to be. He stepped closer. The moonlight from her window caught his scarred face. This plan of yours, it's brilliant, comprehensive, perfectly calculated. Thank you. I wasn't complimenting you. His voice dropped. I was warning you. Revenge changes people, Serafina. I've seen it in war. Watched good men become monsters because they believed the end justified the means. He reached out and touched her face, a brief, unexpected gesture. Are you sure you're still the woman who started this? Or are you becoming him? The question struck deep. Serafina pulled away. I am nothing like the Duke. Aren't you? You're manipulating a child, using her pain as a weapon, sacrificing her emotional well-being for your goals. He paused. He does the same thing. That's different. Is it? Serafina's hands clenched into fists. The Duke uses people because he enjoys power. I'm using these tools because I have no other choice. Justice requires sacrifice. And what are you sacrificing? Ava's innocence? Your own humanity? I'm sacrificing nothing I'm not willing to lose. That's what frightens me. Serafina turned away. If you can't support this... I didn't say that. Reese grabbed her shoulder, turning her back. I'm with you until the end. You know that, but I needed you to hear what you're becoming. What am I becoming? He stared at her. Someone I recognize. Because I became the same thing during the war. And it cost me everything. My honor, my career, my peace. He released her shoulder. When this is over, Serafina, and the Duke is destroyed, you'll have to live with what you did to get there. Make sure it's a life you can bear. He left before she could respond. Serafina stood alone in her room, his words echoing. Am I becoming like the Duke? She thought about Ava, who she was training to spy, to manipulate, to weaponize, observation. She thought about the lies she told so easily now. She thought about the cold calculation with which she planned each move. And she pushed the doubt away. Perkins died screaming because of him. That's all that matters. But that night, when she wrote in her journal, her hand trembled. Day 240, the Duke is testing me. Reese questions my methods. Ava is becoming the weapon I need, but also more vulnerable because of it. Am I destroying the Duke or destroying myself? I don't know anymore, but I cannot stop now. She heated the page, watched the words appear, then extinguished the flame. Outside, the Yorkshire night pressed against the window, and inside, Serafina Hardy lay awake until dawn. Haunted by a question she couldn't answer. When you hunt monsters, how do you avoid becoming one? But she didn't know that in London, the Duke's investigators had just discovered something. A record of a funeral. A name that matched. A connection to Perkins Hale. They were 3 weeks away from giving him proof. And when they did, the Duke would finally know exactly who Serafina Hartley really was. The trap was already closing. She just didn't know it yet. The gathering approaches. Ava is ready to perform. But the Duke's investigators have found the thread that will unravel everything. In 3 weeks, Serafina's perfect cover will die. And she has no idea it's coming. The Duke's gathering took place on a warm June evening. Serafina had spent 2 weeks preparing Ava, teaching her which topics were safe for conversation, which guests to avoid, how to curtsy properly without appearing subservient, but more importantly, she had taught Ava something else. Remember, Serafina said the morning of the event, you are not performing for them. You are allowing them to observe the truth. Ava nodded, understanding. The truth about my father, about your life, your experience. If they draw conclusions from that, it's because the truth demands it. And if father gets angry, then he reveals more about himself than you ever could. That evening, 20 guests arrived. Minor nobility, political allies of the Duke, a few wealthy merchants seeking influence. Serafina watched from the servants' corridor as they entered, men in dark coats, women in silk gowns, everyone calculating their advantage in every conversation. The Duke moved among them effortlessly, charming and cold by turns. He was magnificent at this, reading people, knowing exactly what they wanted to hear. This is why Perkins feared him, Serafina thought. Not because he's cruel, because he's perfect. Ava made her appearance after dinner, joining the ladies in the drawing room. Serafina watched through a crack in the door, Reese standing silent behind her. The girl was perfect. Polite, but not fawning. Intelligent, but not threatening. She answered questions about her education, her interests, her daily life with practiced ease. Then Lady Clayton, wife of the Lord whose son had killed himself after the Duke exposed his gambling debts, asked a question that changed everything. "And what does it feel like, dear, being raised away from society? Do you ever feel lonely?" The room went quiet. Ava's green eyes found Serafina's through the crack in the door. A silent question. "May I?" Serafina nodded once. Ava turned back to Lady Clayton and spoke with devastating simplicity. "Yes, my lady, I am very lonely. My father visits perhaps twice a year. I take all my meals alone, except when guests require my presence. I have lived in this house for 12 years and learned that I am a secret to be managed, not a daughter to be loved." She paused. "But Miss Hartley has taught me that loneliness can make you strong, that isolation can teach you to rely on yourself, and that the people who hide you often fear you more than you fear them." The silence in the room was absolute. Lady Clayton's face had gone pale. Several other women exchanged glances, some horrified, some sympathetic, all calculating the political implications. One of them, Lady Ashford, mother of 3 daughters, leaned forward. "Your father loves you, child. I'm certain he simply—" "My father loves power," Ava said quietly. "I am valuable to him because I can be useful. When I am no longer useful, I suspect I will be lonely again." She curtsied perfectly. "Thank you for your kind attention. I hope you enjoy your evening." She left the room with perfect composure. Behind the door, Reese whispered, "My God, she's extraordinary." Serafina felt pride and guilt in equal measure. Yes, she is. And I've made her into a weapon that will cut her father. What have I done? The damage was done. The wives would tell their husbands. The husbands would question whether a man who treated his daughter so coldly could be trusted with the nation's legal system. Not enough to stop the appointment, but enough to plant doubt. First blood drawn. Later that night, the Duke summoned Serafina to the library. She found him standing by the fire, a glass of brandy in his hand. He did not turn when she entered. "That was your doing," he said. Serafina closed the door behind her. "I didn't tell Ava what to say." "You didn't have to. You've been filling her head with ideas for months, teaching her to question me, to resent me. I taught her to think for herself. You taught her to hate me." The Duke turned. His face was stone, but his eyes burned with something dangerous. "Why?" Serafina made a split-second decision. Attack, not defend. "Because you deserve it." The words hung in the air. The Duke stared at her. For one moment, she thought he would strike her. Instead, he crossed the room in 3 strides and kissed her. Violently, angrily, desperately. Serafina's mind went blank with shock, then snapped back to cold calculation. This is it. The moment I've been building toward? She kissed him back with equal fury. They fell onto the chaise by the fire, tearing at each other's clothes with something that was no longer pretense and no longer entirely strategy. The line between revenge and desire had blurred so completely that Serafina no longer knew which was real. The Duke pulled back, breathing hard. "This is madness." "Yes, I am your employer." "Yes, you should leave." "I know." But she didn't move. The Duke stared at her for one long moment. His hand cupped her face, gentle, despite everything. "Tell me to stop," he said quietly. Serafina thought of Perkins dying in the rain, of 3 years of planning, of justice. This is for Perkins, this is strategy, this is necessary. "No," she whispered. The Duke's control shattered. What happened next was intense, controlled, and utterly deliberate on Serafina's part. She responded to his touch. She whispered his name, his first name, Reginald, which he'd never told her to use. She made him believe she was lost in the moment. But part of her mind stayed cold, observant, cataloging everything. The way he needed control completely. The way he watched her reactions. The way he seemed to need her surrender more than her pleasure. He is lonely, she realized with shock. Desperately, devastatingly lonely. And he doesn't even know it. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the firelight. The Duke's fingers traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "This changes things," he said quietly. "Does it?" "You know it does." Serafina turned her head to look at him. What does it change? Everything. He met her eyes. I don't trust easily, Serafina, but I'm beginning to trust you. It was the first time he'd used her first name. Perfect, her mind whispered. I've cracked him open. But her chest tightened anyway. Why? She asked, keeping her voice soft. Because you see me clearly and you're still here. He paused. Most people either fear me or try to use me. You do neither. Liar, her mind screamed. I am using you. This is all part of the plan. But something in his voice, raw, almost vulnerable, made her chest ache. What do you see when you look at me? She asked a genuine question she hadn't meant to voice. The Duke considered this. I see a woman who has survived something terrible, who has learned to protect herself by being invaluable, who understands that power is the only real security in this world. He was closer to the truth than he knew. And what do you see when you look at yourself? Serafina asked. The Duke was silent for a long moment. I see a man who has built everything and trusts nothing, he said finally. A man who knows that weakness is death, that mercy is foolishness, that the only way to survive is to be stronger, smarter, more ruthless than everyone else. That sounds exhausting. It is. Serafina sat up, pulling the blanket around herself. What if you didn't have to be that man all the time? I don't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. The Duke's expression hardened. No, they don't. I was born into a world where showing weakness means being devoured. My father was a weak man, kind, trusting, gentle. He was destroyed by people he considered friends. I watched it happen. I learned from it. What did you learn? That trust kills you. That love makes you vulnerable. That the only person who will never betray you is yourself. Serafina's mind raced. This was important. This was the core of who he was. And it was the key to destroying him. Because a man who trusted no one could be convinced to trust one person. And then that person could annihilate him. But something in her chest ached, hearing it. I understand, she said softly. The Duke pulled her back down beside him. I believe you do. They lay in silence for a while. Then the Duke spoke again, his voice thoughtful. There's a man in Parliament, Lord Ashford. He's been blocking my judicial appointments for 2 years. Serafina went very still. Why? Because I once revealed his son's gambling debts to secure a vote. The boy killed himself 3 months later. Ashford blames me. Does he have reason to? The Duke smiled coldly. The boy was weak. I simply revealed what was already there. But Ashford has made it his mission to obstruct me ever since. He's gathered other enemies of mine. They're trying to prevent my appointment as Lord Chancellor. Can they succeed? Not if I remove Ashford first. Serafina's heart pounded. How do you plan to do that? The Duke's fingers traced idle patterns on her skin. I have documents, letters Ashford wrote to his mistress, very indiscreet letters. If they were to become public, his reputation would be destroyed, his allies would abandon him, his opposition to me would collapse. Will you release them? Only if necessary. He paused. I prefer to keep such weapons in reserve. They're more valuable as threats than as used ammunition. Serafina forced herself to breathe normally. Where do you keep them? These documents? The Duke glanced at her. Why do you ask? Curiosity. Dangerous quality. Is it? He smiled. In this case, harmless. I keep them in my private safe. No one has access except me. Serafina filed that information away. Private safe. Somewhere in his chambers. You're very careful. I have to be. I've made many enemies on my way to power. Any one of them would destroy me if given the chance. He pulled her closer. That's why tonight surprised me. What about it? You're the first person in 20 years I've allowed myself to be vulnerable with. Even for a moment. Vulnerable. The word struck like a hammer. He wasn't lying. Serafina could see it in his face, genuine surprise at his own behavior. She had cracked something open. Something real. And that made everything more complicated. You're not vulnerable, she said quietly. You're human. The Duke laughed bitter, genuine. Sometimes I wonder if there's a difference. He kissed her forehead, a gesture so gentle it made her chest ache, and closed his eyes. Within minutes, he was asleep. Serafina lay awake beside him, mind racing. She had done it. Gotten close. Made him trust her. Learned about the safe, about his methods, about his psychological architecture. This was victory. So why do I feel like I'm losing? Hours later, she returned to her room. She locked the door, lit a candle, and wrote, Day 271. I slept with the Duke. He confessed to blackmailing Lord Ashford evidence exists in his private safe. He also revealed his core wound, his father's destruction through trust. This is his vulnerability. But something is wrong. He was human tonight. Lonely. Almost fragile. I saw the man beneath the monster. and I felt something I cannot afford to feel. Sympathy. I must be more careful. This cannot become real. It cannot. She heated the page, watched the words appear, then extinguished the flame, but her hands shook as she did it. Outside her window, a figure moved in the shadows. Reese stood in the garden, looking up at her room. He had seen the Duke leave, had seen Serafina's light burning through the night, and he understood exactly what had happened. His hands clenched around his cane until his knuckles went white. Then he turned and walked into the darkness. Serafina has the Duke's trust, the safe location, access to his secrets. But in London, a messenger carries a sealed envelope to the Duke's investigators. Inside, proof of Serafina Hale's real identity. Delivery date, 3 days. The clock is ticking, and she doesn't know it's already too late. The Duke kept his private safe in his dressing room, hidden behind a false panel in the wardrobe. Serafina learned this 3 weeks after their first night together. They had fallen into a pattern twice a week. After Ava slept, Serafina would go to his chambers. They would talk, drink wine, make love, and the Duke would reveal things. Small things. Details he thought were harmless. But Serafina collected them all. One night, after he'd fallen asleep, she rose quietly and explored. She'd been planning this for days, waiting for the right opportunity when he slept deeply enough. The dressing room was dark. She used a candle stub, shielding the flame carefully. The wardrobe was massive, filled with tailored coats and polished boots. She checked each panel methodically, pressing gently, looking for the catch Perkins had taught her to find in hidden compartments. Third panel from the left, it slid aside silently. Behind it was a small iron safe with a combination lock. Serafina's pulse raced. She couldn't open it now, too risky. But knowing where it was, what it looked like, gave her options. She memorized every detail, the lock mechanism, the size, the positioning. Then she closed the panel and returned to bed. The Duke stirred as she slipped under the covers. "Where did you go?" he murmured, half asleep. "The washroom." He pulled her against him and fell back asleep immediately. Serafina lay awake, heart pounding. "I've found it. Now I just need to get inside." The next morning, she found Reese in the stables. "We need to talk," she said quietly. They walked out onto the moors where no one could overhear. "I found the safe," Serafina said without preamble. Reese's eyes sharpened. "Where?" "His dressing room. Hidden panel in the wardrobe. Combination lock." "Can you open it?" "Not without the combination. And I don't have time to crack it while he's sleeping. He wakes easily. We need another approach." "I know." Serafina paused. "I need to get him away from the hall, overnight, long enough to try different combinations without risk." "How?" "There's a parliamentary session in London next month. 2 days minimum, possibly 3. The Duke will have to attend. And you'll stay here with Ava." "Exactly." Serafina met his eyes. "But I'll need help. That lock could take hours to crack. I'll need someone to watch for servants. Create diversions if necessary." "Me." "Yes?" They walked in silence for a moment. Then Reese spoke, his voice tight. "You're sleeping with him." It wasn't a question. Serafina didn't deny it. "Yes." "How long?" 3 weeks. Reese's jaw tightened. And what? Is it working? Is he confessing?" "Yes. He told me about Lord Ashford, about the blackmail letters, about how he keeps evidence of everyone's crimes." "That's good intelligence." "Yes." "So why do you look conflicted?" Serafina stopped walking. "Because it's more complicated than I expected." "How?" She struggled for words. "He's not what I thought. He's brilliant. Yes. Ruthless. Yes. But he's also desperately lonely, damaged by his father's destruction. He's built these walls so high that he can barely feel anything anymore. And when he's with me, those walls crack. Just a little." Reese stared at her. "You're starting to care about him." "No." "Yes, you are. I can hear it in your voice." "I'm not." "Serafina." Reese grabbed her shoulders. "Look at me." She did. "That man," Reese said, his voice hard, "killed your brother. He ordered his death like ordering a meal. Perkins died screaming because of him. You cannot forget that." "I haven't forgotten." "Then why do you look like you're mourning something?" "Because." Serafina's voice cracked. "Because he's more human than I thought. And understanding him makes everything harder. Understanding is not forgiveness." "I know that." "Do you?" Reese's grip tightened. "Because if you start forgiving him, if you start sympathizing with his loneliness, his damage, his tragic backstory, you'll lose your edge. And without that edge, he'll destroy you." "I won't lose my edge." "You already are." Reese released her 3 weeks ago. "You would have spoken about him with pure hatred. Now you're making excuses for him." "I'm not making excuses. I'm being realistic about who he is." "No, you're rationalizing. And rationalization is how monsters survive. They make you understand them. They make you see their humanity. And while you're busy feeling sympathy, they're planning how to use you. Serafina turned away. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I've been exactly where you are. Reese's voice went quiet. During the war, I befriended a French officer we captured. Brilliant man, loved poetry. Had a wife and daughter back in Paris. We talked for hours about philosophy, art, honor. He paused. Then I discovered he'd ordered the execution of 20 British prisoners the month before, lined them up, and shot them for convenience. When I confronted him, he explained it calmly. It was strategically necessary. They couldn't guard prisoners and advance simultaneously. He felt terrible about it, truly. But he'd done it anyway. Reese met her eyes. The Duke is the same. He'll charm you, make you understand him, make you see his pain. And while you're busy sympathizing, he'll destroy anyone who threatens him without a second thought. I know what he is. Then act like it. Serafina's hands clenched into fists. I am acting like it. Everything I'm doing is part of the plan. The seduction, the proximity, the trust I'm building, it's all strategic. Is it? Because from where I stand, it looks like you're falling for him. I'm not. You use his first name now, Reese said quietly. I've heard you. Reginald. You say it like it means something. Serafina felt ice in her veins. It's part of the performance. Performances don't make your hands shake when you talk about him. Performances don't put that look in your eyes like you're trying to reconcile something impossible. Stop. No, Reese stepped closer. Because someone needs to remind you why you're here, what he did, what you're planning to do to him. He pulled a folded paper from his coat. Read this. Serafina took it. It was a copy of the coroner's report from Perkins's death. She'd read it before, but Reese made her read it again. Cause of death, septic infection from flogging wounds, 40 lashes. Death occurred 72 hours post-punishment. Subject suffered extreme pain throughout. Multiple witnesses report subject begging for water in final hours. Final words recorded. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her to finish it. Serafina's vision blurred. Your brother died in agony, Reese said quietly, begging for water. And his last words were about you. About making sure you finished what he started. Remember that the next time you're tempted to see the Duke's humanity. He walked away, leaving her alone on the moors with the report in her trembling hands. That night, Serafina didn't go to the Duke's chambers. She stayed in her room, staring at the report until she'd memorized every word. Perkins, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. There was a knock at her door near midnight. She opened it to find the Duke standing there, still dressed. You didn't come, he said. I wasn't feeling well. His eyes searched her face. What's wrong? Nothing. Serafina. He stepped inside and closed the door. Tell me. She couldn't. She couldn't tell him that she'd been reading about her brother's death, the death he'd ordered. So she lied. I'm frightened, she said, which was true, just not in the way he thought. Of what? This. Us. What happens when people find out? The Duke pulled her against him. No one will find out. I'll protect you. Protect me. From what? From yourself? But she leaned into him anyway because the warmth was real and the loneliness was real, and she was so tired of being cold. Promise me something, she whispered. What? That you'll never lie to me. Whatever else happens, just don't lie. The Duke pulled back to look at her. Something complex crossed his face. I promise, he said. It was a lie, of course. They both knew it. But they pretended anyway. That night, as he slept beside her, Serafina wrote in her journal, Day 320, Reese is right. I'm losing my edge. I see the Duke's humanity and it makes everything harder. But I also see Perkins's death report and remember why I'm here. I cannot afford confusion, cannot afford sympathy, cannot afford to forget. Perkins died begging for water. His last words were about me finishing this. That's all I need to remember. She heated the page, watched the words appear. Then she lay down beside the man who killed her brother and tried not to think about how his hand felt in hers. But in London, the Duke's lead investigator held a damning document in his hands. A funeral record, a property sale, a trail of evidence that led from Serafina Hartley directly back to Perkins Hale. He sealed it in an envelope and prepared it for the morning coach. 3 days. That's how long it would take to reach the Duke. And when it did, everything would change. The safe is located. The plan is ready. But the Duke's evidence is already on its way. In 72 hours, he'll know the truth. And Serafina has no idea the clock has already run out. August arrived with unusual heat. The Duke returned from London in excellent spirits. His political maneuvering had succeeded brilliantly. Lord Ashford had withdrawn his opposition after receiving a private message. No one knew what the message contained, but Ashford looked broken when he left Parliament. Serafina knew. She'd glimpsed a draft in the Duke's desk during one of her carefully timed searches. Withdraw your opposition, or your daughter's illegitimate child becomes public knowledge. Ruthless, efficient, monstrous. The Duke celebrated by announcing his engagement. Lady Margaret Sefton was 24, blonde, beautiful, and the daughter of a wealthy earl. The match was politically perfect. Her father controlled 12 seats in Parliament, her dowry was substantial, her reputation was spotless. Serafina learned about it the same way the servants did from Mrs. Dalton at breakfast. His Grace is engaged, the housekeeper announced. Lady Margaret will be visiting next week. The words hit Serafina like a physical blow. She had known this might happen. The Duke needed a political marriage, but she had thought foolishly that their affair meant something, that he might delay, that she had more time. Idiot, she thought savagely. You're a governess he's sleeping with. He was always going to marry someone appropriate. But the betrayal felt real anyway. And worse, it complicated everything. A wife would have access to his chambers, his papers, his private spaces. The window for accessing the safe was closing. Reese found her in the garden that afternoon. You heard, he said. Yes. Are you all right? No. Serafina's voice was flat. But it doesn't matter. This actually helps us. How? Margaret will want to meet Ava, see the household, understand what she's marrying into. Serafina's mind raced, cold calculation returning. And Ava will tell her the truth about what life with the Duke really means. You're going to use Ava to sabotage his engagement. I'm going to give Ava an opportunity to be honest. What Margaret does with that honesty is her choice. Reese studied her. This isn't just strategy. You're hurt. Of course I'm hurt. I'm human. Serafina met his eyes. But I'm also focused. The engagement strengthens his position. Margaret's father will throw his full support behind the Lord Chancellorship unless we break it. And if we do, then the Duke loses a powerful alliance. His support weakens. And when we expose him, she paused, he'll have fewer people willing to defend him. Reese nodded slowly. All right. What do you need me to do? Nothing yet. Just be ready. He touched her face briefly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Don't be. This is what we wanted. Him vulnerable. Off balance. Is it? Serafina pulled away. It has to be. That night, the Duke came to her room. You've been avoiding me, he said. I've been busy with Ava. Serafina. He closed the door. What's wrong? Nothing. You heard about Margaret. Yes. Congratulations. The Duke caught her arm as she turned away. Look at me. She did, and couldn't hide the hurt in her eyes. His expression softened. This doesn't change us. Of course it does. No. It's politics. Strategy. Margaret is the marriage I need for the appointment. But she's not. He stopped. She's not what? She's not you. Serafina's chest tightened. That doesn't make this hurt less. I know. He pulled her close. But I need you to understand. This appointment is everything to me. It's the culmination of 20 years of work. I cannot let emotions compromise it. Emotions. The word hung between them. Is that what this is? Serafina asked. Emotions? The Duke hesitated. She saw the war in his face between his feelings and his ironclad self-control. Yes, he said finally. God help me, yes. He kissed her desperately, and Serafina kissed back with equal desperation, hating herself for wanting this, for needing this, for feeling anything at all. This is perfect, she told herself as they fell into bed. He's emotionally compromised, distracted, vulnerable. This is exactly what I needed. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like breaking. Afterward, lying in her narrow bed, with him asleep beside her, she stared at the ceiling. This is perfect, she repeated. I have him exactly where I want him. But her hands were shaking, and she couldn't make them stop. Lady Margaret arrived on a golden afternoon. She stepped out of her carriage in a pale green silk dress, blonde hair in perfect ringlets. She was lovely, graceful, poised, exactly the kind of woman who belonged in paintings and ballrooms. The Duke greeted her with warmth. Serafina had never seen him show anyone else. From Ava's window, Serafina watched the Duke offer Margaret his arm, his expression animated in a way that made something sharp twist in her chest. She's beautiful, Ava said beside her. Yes. Father looks happy. Yes. Ava turned to look at Serafina. You're in love with him. Serafina's breath stopped. What? With my father. You're in love with him. Ava? I'm not stupid, Miss Hartley. I see how you look at him, how you watch him when you think no one's watching you. The girl's green eyes were too knowing, and I see how he looks at you. Serafina sat down heavily. Ava, are you going to stop Lady Margaret from marrying him? The question was direct, unapologetic. Serafina met the girl's eyes. What do you think I should do? I think, Ava said slowly, that you're the only person who makes my father human. Without you, he'll be empty again. Just power and control and nothing else. And what about what he's done? The people he's hurt? Ava frowned. What people? Serafina realized her mistake. Ava didn't know about Perkins, didn't know about the Duke's crimes, saw only the lonely father who ignored her and the governess who'd made him slightly less cold. I've kept her innocent of the truth while using her as a weapon. What does that make me? Never mind, Serafina said. What do you want me to do about Lady Margaret? Ava smiled small. Dangerous. I think I should tell her the truth about what life here is really like. And what truth is that? That my father doesn't love people. He collects them, uses them, and when they're no longer useful, he discards them. Ava's voice was steady. Lady Margaret should know what she's marrying. Serafina felt the weight of what she'd created. This girl, brilliant, damaged, weaponized by months of training. What have I done to her? But she also thought of Perkins, of justice, of the plan. Tell her, Serafina said, but Ava, only the truth. Don't exaggerate, don't be cruel, just honest. Ava nodded. That evening, Margaret joined them for dinner. She was charming, asking Ava gentle questions about her education, her interests, her daily life. Ava answered politely, perfectly. Then Margaret made a mistake. You must be so grateful to have a father who provides so well for you, despite. She trailed off delicately, realizing too late she'd touched dangerous ground. Ava's expression didn't change. Despite being a bastard? Margaret flushed. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. Ava's voice was calm, almost pleasant. It's what everyone means, what they whisper behind closed doors. The Duke cleared his throat. Ava, you asked me to make a good impression, father, Ava said, looking directly at him. I'm simply being honest. She turned back to Margaret. You want to know what it's like being his daughter? I'll tell you. I've lived in this house for 13 years. I've eaten dinner with him perhaps 20 times. He's never asked about my fears, my dreams, my hopes. He keeps me here because I'm his, a possession he owns but doesn't display. That's enough, the Duke said sharply. Ava ignored him. If you marry him, Lady Margaret, you'll be the same. Beautiful, useful, utterly alone. He'll give you everything except what you actually need to be seen as human, not strategy. The room was silent. Margaret's face had gone pale. Her hands trembled on her napkin. The Duke stood. Ava, go to your room. Ava rose gracefully. Good night, father. Good night, Lady Margaret. I hope you choose wisely. She left. The silence she left behind was devastating. Margaret looked at the Duke. Is that true? What she said? The Duke's jaw was tight. Ava is a child, a dramatic, resentful child who doesn't understand adult complexities. She seemed to understand perfectly. Margaret? I'd like to retire early, Margaret said quietly. The journey was exhausting. She left without waiting for permission. The Duke stood alone in the dining room, fury radiating from every line of his body. Then he turned and walked directly to Serafina's room. She was waiting. He entered without knocking, slammed the door. That was your doing, he said. I didn't tell Ava what to say. You didn't have to. You've been preparing her for this, training her to question me, to weaponize the truth against me. I trained her to think for herself. You trained her to destroy me. The Duke crossed the room, grabbing her arms. Why? Serafina's heart pounded. This was it, the moment where everything could fall apart. Because, she said carefully, someone needed to tell Margaret the truth about what she's marrying into. And you decided that someone should be my daughter? Your daughter knows better than anyone what life with you means. The Duke's grip tightened. You did this because you're jealous. I did this because it needed doing. Liar. His voice was low, dangerous. You did this because I'm marrying someone else, because I chose duty over... He stopped. Over what? Serafina demanded. Say it. Over you. The words hung between them, raw and true. The Duke released her and turned away. I care about you, more than I should, more than is wise, but I cannot let that compromise everything I've worked for. Then don't. He looked back at her. What? Marry Margaret. Take the appointment. Build your empire. Serafina's voice was steady. But don't pretend Ava lied tonight. She told the truth. And Margaret will leave because of it. Not because I manipulated anyone, because the truth about who you are is uglier than the lie you present to the world. The Duke stared at her. You don't understand me at all. I understand you perfectly. You're brilliant, strategic, and fundamentally incapable of genuine connection. Ava sees it. Margaret will see it. Everyone eventually sees it. And you? His voice was quiet. Do you see it? Yes. And yet you're still here. Yes. Why? Because I need to be. Because destroying you requires proximity. Because this is all part of the plan. But what she said was, because you're human underneath all that armor. And I think part of you is desperately trying to reach out, to connect, even if you don't know how. The Duke's face cracked open just for a second. Something vulnerable and lost and almost childlike flickered across his features. Then he locked it down. "Margaret leaves tomorrow," he said flatly. "The engagement will be quietly ended, and everyone will blame me. They'll say I'm cold, heartless, incapable of marriage. Probably. This weakens my position, significantly." "Yes." The Duke walked to the door, then stopped. "Did you plan this? All of it?" Serafina's breath caught. "Yes. Every second. Every word. Every touch. All of it." "No," she lied. "I didn't." He studied her face for a long moment. "I don't believe you," he said quietly. Then he left. Serafina stood alone in her room, shaking. She'd won. Margaret was leaving, the engagement was broken, the Duke's political support was weakening. So why do I feel like I've just lost something irreplaceable? That night, she wrote, "Day 360. Margaret is gone. The engagement is broken. The Duke's support weakens. Everything is proceeding according to plan." But he looked at me tonight and said he didn't believe me. He's starting to suspect. And the terrible part is, when he said he cared about me, I wanted it to be true. I wanted it to be true. God help me. What am I becoming? She heated the page until the words appeared. Then she crossed out the last 3 lines so violently the paper tore. Some truths were too dangerous even to acknowledge. But outside her window, a writer had just arrived from London. He carried a sealed envelope addressed to the Duke. Inside, complete documentation of Serafina Hale's identity, her connection to Perkins, and proof of her infiltration. The messenger knocked on the Duke's door at midnight, and everything Serafina had built was about to burn. The Duke opens the envelope, reads every word, and for the first time in their entire relationship, his face shows genuine emotion. Not anger, something worse. Betrayal. He's known for 3 months, and he's been playing her the entire time. September came cold and early. Serafina had exactly 3 weeks until the Duke's appointment as Lord Chancellor was to be announced. 3 weeks to finalize the plan, to copy the documents, to prepare Ava, to gather the last pieces of evidence, and to somehow keep her focus when everything was falling apart. The Duke had been distant since Margaret left. Cold. Watching her. He came to her room less frequently. When he did, he asked careful questions. Probing. Testing. He suspects something. Reese has returned from London with the forger, Serafina told Ava during a lesson. The girl knew enough now to be included in some plan's carefully edited versions that didn't reveal the full scope. "What will the forger do?" Ava asked. "Make copies of important documents, so we have insurance." "Insurance against what? Against your father?" Serafina said carefully. "Ava, I need you to understand something. Your father is a powerful man, but he's also hurt many people on his way to that power. We're collecting evidence to destroy him." Serafina stopped. "What?" Ava looked up from her book. "That's what you're doing, isn't it? Destroying him, with Captain Blackwood's help." Serafina's blood ran cold. "How did you—" "I'm not stupid. I've been watching you both for months. The secret meetings, the way you search his study when you think no one sees. The letters you write and hide." Ava's green eyes were steady. "You hate him. I just didn't know why until recently." "Ava, did he hurt you before you came here?" Serafina's throat closed. "Yes." "How?" "He killed someone I loved." Ava absorbed this. "Then, who?" "My brother." The girl was quiet for a long moment. "Tell me." So Serafina did. She told Ava about Perkins, about the flogging, about justice and revenge, and the year she'd spent building this plan. When she finished, Ava's face was pale but calm. "What do you need me to do?" the girl asked. "You don't have to. He killed your brother. He's been using me my entire life. He'll use you too, and then discard you when you're no longer useful." Ava's voice was steady, cold beyond her years. "Tell me what you need." Serafina felt the weight of what she'd created. This girl no longer innocent, no longer protected, weaponized by months of training, and now by knowledge of the truth. "I've made her into something dangerous, something like me. I need you to be ready to leave," Serafina said. "In 3 weeks, we'll take you with us when we go." "Where?" "Away from England, somewhere he can't reach you." "And you'll expose him? His crimes?" "Yes." Ava nodded. "Good." But that night, Serafina found Reese in their usual meeting spot, the abandoned gamekeeper's cottage. "We have a problem," Reese said immediately. "What?" "The Duke has hired investigators, 3 of them. They're looking into your background, every detail of the Serafina Hartley identity." Serafina's stomach dropped. "When?" 2 weeks ago. I just learned about it today from a contact in London." "Have they found anything?" "Not yet. Your forgeries are excellent, but they will eventually. Someone always talks." "How long do we have?" "A month. Maybe less." Serafina's mind raced. Then we move the timeline. We don't wait 3 weeks, we do this now. We're not ready. We have to be ready. The Duke is in London for 2 days, starting tomorrow. That's our window to copy the safe documents. After that, we expose everything immediately. The forger needs at least a week. Then he works faster. Reese grabbed her shoulders. Serafina, if we rush this and make mistakes, we could lose everything. We need time to... We don't have time. Her voice rose. He's investigating me. He suspects. Every day we wait is another day he gets closer to the truth. If he discovers who I am before we expose him, I'm dead. Do you understand? Not dismissed, not exiled, dead. Reese pulled her against him. She shook in his arms from fear, from adrenaline, from months of tension finally breaking. All right, he said quietly. We do it now, tomorrow night. I'll get Webb ready, you crack the safe, we copy everything. Serafina pulled back. And Ava comes with us? Agreed. They stood in the dark cottage, 3 years of planning crystallizing into the next 48 hours. Reese, Serafina said, if this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, promise me you'll take Ava and run. Don't try to save me, just get her out. No. Promise me. No. Reese's voice was firm. We started this together. We finish it together. No one gets left behind. That's foolish. Maybe. He touched her face. But we're well past wisdom now, aren't we? He kissed her desperate, urgent, the kiss of 2 people who knew they might not survive what was coming. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. After this is over, Reese said, and the Duke is destroyed and we're safe somewhere, I want to know if what's between us is real or just survival instinct. Reese, you don't have to answer now. Just after. Think about it. He left before she could respond. Serafina stood alone in the cottage, her lips still burning from his kiss, her mind spinning with plans and contingencies and the terrifying knowledge that everything was about to explode. That night, she didn't write in her journal. Instead, she spent the hours until dawn preparing, packing a small bag with essentials, hiding Perkins's original documents in her cloak lining, writing 3 letters to 3 different newspaper editors sealed, addressed, ready to be sent if she didn't survive, insurance, backup, final revenge from beyond the grave if necessary. At dawn, the Duke's carriage departed for London. Serafina watched from her window as it disappeared down the drive. 48 hours. That's all I have to destroy the man who destroyed my brother, and to figure out why part of me still wants to save him. But what Serafina didn't know was that the Duke wasn't in that carriage. He had sent it ahead, empty as a decoy. He was standing in his study, holding the investigator's report, reading it for the 3rd time. Serafina Hale, sister of Perkins Hale, infiltrated household under false identity, purpose, revenge. He'd known for 3 months, had been watching her, testing her, waiting to see how far she would go, and now she was about to crack his safe. He set down the report and smiled. Let her try. He wanted to see what she would do when she thought she'd won, and then he would show her what real power looked like. Serafina thinks the Duke is in London. She's about to crack the safe. But he's watching from the shadows, and when she opens that panel, she'll find something she never expected. The Duke has been 3 steps ahead the entire time, and his trap is about to close. The Duke left at dawn. By noon, Reese had Webb installed in the old gamekeeper's cottage with all his forging tools. By nightfall, the manor was quiet, servants in their quarters, Ava locked safely in her room. At midnight, Serafina entered the Duke's chambers. Her hands were steady as she lit a single candle, steady as she crossed to the dressing room, steady as she opened the wardrobe and found the false panel. They trembled only when she began working the combination lock. She'd written down every possible combination based on what she knew. The Duke's birth year, Ava's birth year, his dead son's birth year, significant political dates. She tried them systematically. None worked. An hour passed. Then 2. Serafina's hands began to shake from tension. Think. What would he use? What matters to him? Then she remembered something he'd said weeks ago during one of their late-night conversations. My father died on my 21st birthday. Best gift he ever gave me. She tried the date. 2/18/1798. The safe clicked open. Serafina's breath stopped. Inside were documents. Dozens of them. Letters, ledgers, deeds, records of financial transactions. She worked quickly, her mind photographing each page, memorizing key names and dates. She couldn't take anything the Duke would notice. But what she found made her blood run cold. Lord Ashford's blackmail letters, evidence of 6 other members of Parliament being extorted, a ledger documenting bribes paid to 12 different judges over 10 years, forged documents used in land disputes, records of 3 business accidents that had eliminated rivals. And at the very bottom, A single letter, addressed to the Duke, from someone named R.C. The letter was dated 2 days before Perkins's flogging. Your Grace, the matter we discussed has been arranged. Perkins Hale will be made an example. The public flogging has been scheduled for the 3rd. The punishment will be severe enough to ensure he does not survive to press charges. As agreed, my fee is enclosed. This concludes our arrangement. Discretion assured. R.C. Seraphina's vision blurred. This was it. Proof that the Duke had ordered Perkins's death, had paid someone to arrange it, to ensure he did not survive. Murder. Premeditated. Documented. She read the letter 3 more times, memorizing every word. Then she carefully replaced everything exactly as she'd found it, closed the safe, spun the combination, sealed the panel. Her hands shook now, violently. She walked back to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the Duke's bed. For one moment, she let herself feel it. The grief, the rage, the overwhelming weight of knowing her brother's murder was planned, paid for, carried out like a business transaction. Perkins, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you died like that. Then she locked it away. There would be time for grief later. She found Reese waiting in the corridor. Did you get everything? He asked. Yes. Something in her voice made him stop. Seraphina, what did you find? Proof. Her voice was flat. The Duke ordered Perkins's death. It's documented, dated, signed by the hired agent. Reese's expression darkened. Then we have him. Yes. We copy everything. We send it to the newspapers. No. Reese stopped. What? We can't use copies. If we release forged documents, the Duke will claim they're fabricated. He'll demand the originals for comparison. And we can't produce them without admitting we broke into his safe. Then what? We have to make investigators find the originals themselves, Seraphina said. We publish what we know details only someone who'd seen the documents would know. We tell the newspapers where to look. We force the authorities to investigate. When they find the originals in the Duke's own safe, he can't claim forgery. Reese's eyes widened. That's brilliant. It's necessary, but it means we can't touch the documents. Can't take them, can't prove we have them. Correct. We have my memory, Perkins's original evidence, and the testimony of anyone willing to talk. Seraphina met his eyes. Is it enough? It will have to be. They walked quickly to the cottage where Webb was waiting. Seraphina dictated everything she'd seen. Webb wrote furiously, copying her descriptions verbatim. Every detail, every name, every date. It took 4 hours. By dawn, they had a complete account of the Duke's crimes documented in Seraphina's words, corroborated by Perkins's evidence, detailed enough that any investigator following the trail would find exactly what she described. This goes to the Times tomorrow morning, Seraphina said. By the time the Duke reads his newspaper, his crimes will be public. And us? Webb asked nervously. You go to London immediately. We give you enough money to disappear. Seraphina turned to Reese. We take Ava and leave. Tonight, before the Duke returns. Where? Dover. Then France. The sound of hooves on gravel made them all freeze. Reese moved to the window. His face went white. The Duke's carriage, he said. He's back early. Seraphina's world tilted. That's impossible. He was supposed to be gone 2 days. He's here. Now. They stared at each other. Did you close the safe? Reese asked. Yes. Lock the panel? Yes. Would he notice anything disturbed? I don't know. I was careful, but we need to go. Now, Reese grabbed her arm. Get Ava. Meet at the carriage. Webb, you leave immediately through the back way. They scattered. Seraphina ran to Ava's room. The girl was already dressed, bag packed. She'd been ready for days. It's happening? Ava asked. Now. We leave now. They ran through the servants' passage, down the back stairs, toward the stables where Reese had hidden their escape carriage. They were halfway across the dark courtyard when light flooded from the manor. The Duke stood in the doorway. He was still in his traveling clothes. His face was unreadable in the light spilling from behind him. Going somewhere, Miss Hartley? He asked quietly. Seraphina stopped. Ava's hand gripped hers tightly. Reese emerged from the stables, brass-handled cane in hand. The Duke looked at all 3 of them. Then his gaze settled on Seraphina. Or should I say, Miss Hale. The world stopped. Seraphina's blood turned to ice. I don't know what you don't. The Duke's voice was soft, deadly. I've known who you are for 3 months. 3 months. He's known the entire time. Every confession was calculated. Every vulnerability was bait. And now, standing in the courtyard with nowhere to run, Seraphina realizes the terrible truth. She was never hunting him. He was hunting her. And she walked right into his trap. Seraphina's world shattered. 3 months? the Duke repeated, descending the steps slowly. I've known exactly who you are, Serafina Hale, sister of Perkins Hale, the woman who infiltrated my household to destroy me. Reese shifted, positioning himself between Serafina and the Duke. Stay back. The Duke ignored him, his eyes fixed on Serafina. Do you want to know when I discovered the truth? Serafina couldn't speak. Her mind raced through 3 months of intimacy, 3 months of confessions, 3 months of... June, the Duke said. After you sabotaged my engagement with Margaret, something about your reaction that night felt too calculated, too perfectly timed. So I had you investigated properly. Not just your false references, everything. It took 2 weeks to trace you back to London, to Perkins Hale's funeral, to his sister who vanished 3 months later. He stopped 10 feet away. I found proof you forged your identity, created an entire false employment history, learned that Perkins Hale had a sister who matched your description exactly. Then why didn't you stop me? Serafina's voice was barely a whisper. The Duke's expression was complex anger, admiration, something that might have been pain, because I wanted to see how far you would go, how perfectly you would play the part, how much you were willing to sacrifice for revenge. He took another step closer, and because his voice dropped, part of me hoped I was wrong, that somewhere in all the lies there was something real. There wasn't, Serafina said, forcing ice into her voice. Liar. The Duke's eyes burned into hers. I felt it. When you looked at me, when you touched me, when you said my name in the dark. Some of it was real, Serafina. And we both know it. You killed my brother. Yes, I did. The admission was so calm, so unapologetic, that Serafina felt something break inside her. You ordered him flogged to death like an animal. I ordered him punished according to law for public defamation. The severity of that punishment was legal, calculated to serve as an example. The Duke's voice was cold. Your brother threatened my political position with his accusations. I responded proportionally. He was telling the truth. The truth is irrelevant when it threatens power. The Duke's expression hardened. That's what your brother never understood. That's what you still don't understand. Truth without power is just noise. I have survived by understanding that fundamental reality. Serafina's hands clenched into fists. You're a monster! Yes, I am. The Duke didn't deny it, but I'm an honest monster. I never pretended to be anything else. Can you say the same? You came into my house under false pretenses. You seduced me with calculated precision. You turned my daughter against me. You sabotaged my engagement. You stole into my private chambers. He stopped. Did you open my safe, Serafina? Silence. The Duke smiled without humor. Of course you did. That's why you're fleeing tonight. You found what you needed. I found proof of murder, Serafina said. The letter from RC about arranging Perkins's example, dated 2 days before the flogging. The Duke's expression didn't change. That letter proves nothing. R.C. could be anyone. The arrangement could refer to anything. It proves you paid someone to ensure my brother didn't survive. It proves I corresponded with someone whose identity you cannot establish about a matter you cannot specify. The Duke's voice was clinical. Any competent lawyer would have it dismissed. You know this. That's why you're running instead of going to the authorities. He was right. And Serafina knew it. But here's what you should know, the Duke continued. I've been aware of your plan for 3 months. I've watched you searching my study. I've felt you memorizing details when you thought I was asleep. I've known about every secret meeting with Reese, every coded message, every careful lie. Reese's grip tightened on his cane. Then why play along? The Duke finally looked at him, because I wanted to see if she could actually do it, if she had the strength to destroy me. He paused. And because I was curious whether revenge would satisfy her or destroy her first, he turned back to Serafina. So here we are. The night of your great escape, the culmination of a year's planning. His voice was soft. Tell me, Serafina, do you feel victorious? Serafina's throat closed. Because the answer was no. She felt empty. Broken. Used. Everything she'd done, all the lies, all the manipulation, all the time she'd sold pieces of herself, and he'd known. He'd known and he'd played along, studying her like a specimen, using her vulnerability against her just as she'd tried to use his against him. What happens now? Reese asked, his voice hard. The Duke considered this. That depends on Serafina. What do you mean? Serafina forced out. I'm offering you a choice. The Duke stepped closer. You can leave. Tonight. Take Ava if you want. I won't stop you. Disappear. Start a new life somewhere I'll never find you. And the alternative? You stay. The Duke's eyes never left hers. You marry me. And you help me become the Lord Chancellor I was meant to be. Serafina stared at him. You're insane. No, I'm practical. The Duke's voice was calm. You're brilliant, Serafina. Ruthless, strategic, everything I value. The fact that you tried to destroy me simply proves you're strong enough to stand beside me. I will never help you. Then leave. He gestured toward the waiting carriage. I won't stop you. I won't pursue you. You'll be free. And my brother's death? What about justice for him? The Duke's expression went cold. Your brother exposed my corruption publicly. He humiliated me in front of the Royal Society. He threatened everything I'd built. I responded according to the laws of power. That's not murder, Serafina. That's survival. You're delusional. I'm realistic. The Duke stepped even closer. You've spent a year trying to destroy me, and you've learned something terrifying, haven't you? What? That I'm human, flawed, lonely, damaged by my own father's destruction. That underneath the ruthlessness, there's something worth saving. His voice dropped. And you've started to care. Serafina's breath caught. I hate you. You also understand me, better than anyone ever has. That's why, despite everything, you couldn't bring yourself to hate me completely. He reached out and touched her face. Serafina should have pulled away. She didn't. Choose, Serafina, the Duke said softly. Leave and spend your life wondering if you made the right choice. Or stay and help me change England into something better. You'll never make things better. Not alone, but together? He paused. We could be extraordinary. Behind Serafina, Ava spoke for the first time. Don't listen to him. He's manipulating you. The Duke's eyes shifted to his daughter. Ava, you've been taught many things this year. Has Miss Hartley taught you about difficult choices? She taught me to protect myself from men like you. Good. That's wise. The Duke's expression softened slightly. I've been a poor father. I acknowledge that. But that doesn't make me a monster to everyone. Only to those who threaten me. He looked back at Serafina. You have until dawn to decide. After that, my appointment is announced, and whatever you choose becomes permanent. The Duke turned and walked back into the manor. The door closed behind him. Serafina stood frozen, Ava's hand gripping hers, Rhys's presence solid behind her. We need to go, Rhys said. Now, before he changes his mind. He won't change his mind, Serafina said numbly. He meant what he said. Then what are you waiting for? Serafina stared at the closed door. At the house where she'd spent a year destroying herself to destroy him. At the life she could walk away from right now? I don't know, she whispered. Ava pulled on her hand. Miss Hartley, please, we need to leave. Serafina looked down at the girl, 13 years old, brilliant, damaged, waiting to be saved. Then she looked at Rhys, scarred, loyal, offering her a future built on something other than revenge. And she thought of Perkins. Dying in the rain, begging for water. Record everything, he'd said. He fears something. I have to go back, Serafina said. What? Rhys grabbed her arm. Are you insane? He offered me a choice, but it wasn't a real choice. It was a test. Serafina's mind raced. He wants to see if I'll choose him over revenge. If I'll prove that his power can make people abandon their principles, so prove him wrong by leaving. No, Serafina pulled free. I prove him wrong by staying and finishing what I started. He knows everything. You have no leverage. I have one thing. Serafina met Rhys's eyes. He cares about me. It's the only genuine emotion he's felt in 20 years, and he doesn't know how to process it. That's his weakness. You're not making sense. Ava, go with Rhys, Serafina said. Get to Dover. Wait 3 days? If I don't come? No, Ava's voice broke. I won't leave you with him. You have to. Serafina knelt to meet the girl's eyes. Ava, I need you safe. I need to know that if this goes wrong, you'll survive. Can you do that for me? Ava's eyes filled with tears. He'll hurt you. No, he won't, because he wants me to choose him willingly. Serafina touched the girl's face. I promise I'll come for you. 3 days. Trust me. Ava threw her arms around Serafina's neck, sobbing. Serafina held her tight, breathing in the girl's hair, memorizing the feeling of being needed by someone purely, without calculation. Then she pulled back. Go? Now? Rhys grabbed her shoulders. This is suicide. It's strategy. It's madness. You're too close to him. Your judgment is compromised. My judgment is clear. Serafina met his eyes. For the first time in a year, I know exactly what I need to do, which is destroy him from the inside, using the one weapon he doesn't know how to defend against. What weapon? The truth. Serafina's voice was steady, not about his crimes, about himself, about what he's become, about what he fears most. Rhys stared at her. You're going to make him face his own humanity. Yes. And if it doesn't work, then I'll die knowing I tried everything. But Ava will be safe, and you'll make sure the evidence gets published. Promise me. Rhys's jaw clenched. I promise. Then go. He kissed her desperate, fierce, a goodbye that might be permanent. When he pulled back, his scarred face was wet. 3 days, he said. If you're not there, I'm coming back. Don't. Just get Ava to safety. 3 days, Serafina. He and Ava climbed into the carriage. Reese took the reins. Serafina watched them disappear into the darkness. Then she turned back to the manor. The Duke was waiting. Serafina walks back into the monster's lair. Alone. Unarmed. With nothing but the truth as her weapon. The Duke has won every battle, but the war isn't over yet. Because she's about to do something he never expected. Something that will either save them both or destroy them completely. Dawn came cold and gray. Serafina had not slept. She'd spent the night walking the manor through corridors where she'd plotted revenge, past Ava's empty room, into the library where everything had changed. By sunrise, she knew what she had to do. The Duke found her in his study at first light. He looked as exhausted as she felt. Have you decided? He asked. Yes. He waited. I want you to confess, Serafina said. Publicly. To everything. But not as surrender to me. As reckoning with yourself. The Duke nodded slowly. Agreed. I want you to step down from the Lord Chancellor appointment. Agreed. I want you to face legal consequences. Real ones. A trial. Judgment. Whatever the law demands. Agreed. And I want Ava raised away from your influence. With people who will teach her to be something other than a weapon. The Duke's expression tightened, but he nodded. Agreed. Serafina took a breath. But I also want one more thing. What? The truth. The complete truth. Why did you really order Perkins's death? Not the political calculation. Not the strategic necessity. What were you afraid of? The Duke was silent for a long moment. Then he sat down heavily, suddenly looking far older than 38. Your brother reminded me of myself, he said quietly. Before I became this. When I still believed truth mattered more than power. When I thought exposing corruption would change things. He met her eyes. I ordered his death because seeing him, hearing him, speak with such conviction about justice and truth showed me everything I'd lost, everything I'd killed in myself to survive. And I couldn't bear it. So I destroyed the reminder. The confession was devastating in its honesty. You killed him because he showed you what you'd become, Serafina said. Yes, that's even worse than doing it for power. I know. Serafina walked to the window. Outside, the moor stretched gray and endless. I can't love you, she said finally. What you did to Perkins will always stand between us. I will never forgive that. Never forget it. I know, but I also can't destroy you. Not completely. Because some part of me believes you're telling the truth, that you're trying to change. And if there's any chance of that, any chance you can become something other than what you are, she turned back. Then maybe Perkins's death can mean something. How? By teaching you what it cost. By making you face consequences. By forcing you to live with what you've done instead of hiding behind power. Serafina crossed to where he sat. I will help you confess. I will stand beside you while you face judgment. But after that, we're done. You go your way, I go mine. We never see each other again. The Duke's expression cracked. Serafina, that's my choice. Take it or leave it. He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. I'll take it. 3 hours later, the Duke of Blackwell stood before a hastily assembled council of judges, magistrates, and political allies in the great hall of Blackwood Manor. Serafina stood in the back, watching. The Duke spoke with the same cold precision he'd used his entire career. But this time, instead of defending power, he was confessing to its abuse. He detailed every bribe, every blackmail, every threat, every life he'd ruined to advance his position. And finally, in a room gone utterly silent, he confessed to arranging Perkins Hale's death. I paid an agent known as RC to ensure the flogging punishment was severe enough that Perkins Hale would not survive to press charges against me. The letter documenting this payment exists in my private safe. I provide you with the combination willingly. He recited the numbers. I make no excuses. I offer no justification. I acted from fear, ambition, and moral cowardice, and I am prepared to face whatever consequences the law demands. The silence was absolute. Then Lord Ashford, whose son had died because of the Duke, stood. You expect us to believe this sudden attack of conscience? No, the Duke said. I expect you to investigate, to verify everything I've said, to find the evidence I've hidden, and to judge me accordingly. Why confess now? Another lord demanded. The Duke's eyes found Serafina's across the room. Because someone showed me that power without accountability is just tyranny, and I'm tired of being a tyrant. The trial took 3 months. The Duke was stripped of his title pending judgment. His assets were frozen. He was confined to Blackwood Hall under guard while investigators tore apart his life. Everything he'd said was verified. The evidence was damning, incontrovertible. The verdict, when it came, was exile. Not execution the crimes, while monstrous fell short of capital punishment under the law, but permanent exile from England, forfeiture of all titles and property, and a public record ensuring his name would forever be synonymous with corruption. Serafina watched the sentence delivered from the gallery. When it was over, the Duke was granted 1 hour to collect personal belongings before being escorted to Dover. She found him in the library for the last time. "It's done," he said. "Yes." "Ava?" "Safe. With Rhys in France. I'm leaving to join them tomorrow." The Duke nodded. "Good. She'll be better off without me." They stood in the room where everything had begun and ended. "I meant what I said," the Duke said quietly. "About wanting to change. About wanting to be something other than what I was." "I know. Do you believe I can?" Serafina considered this. "I believe you'll try. Whether you succeed," she paused, "that's up to you." The Duke stepped closer. "Will you ever forgive me?" "No." "Will you ever think of me?" Against her will, Serafina's eyes burned. "Yes, but not the way you want." "How then?" "As a lesson. About what happens when power matters more than people, when survival justifies any cruelty, when fear makes you destroy everything you could have been." She touched his face one last time. "I hope you find peace, Reginald. I genuinely do. But I also hope you never forget what you did, because Perkins deserves to be remembered by the man who killed him." The Duke's composure finally broke. Tears slid down his face, the first genuine emotion she'd seen him express without calculation. "I won't forget," he whispered. "I promise." Serafina turned and walked away. She didn't look back. The villa overlooked the city in golden afternoon light. Serafina sat at the terrace table, writing. Not in invisible ink anymore. Not in code. Just writing. Ava found her there, book in hand. The girl had grown in 6 months, taller, calmer, no longer armored against the world. "What are you working on?" Ava asked. "A letter." "To whom?" "Your father." Ava sat down. "Are you going to send it?" "I don't know." They sat in companionable silence. Then Ava spoke. "Do you regret it? Letting him confess instead of destroying him completely?" Serafina thought about this. "Sometimes. Late at night when I remember Perkins dying alone. Then I think, yes, I should have been more ruthless. And the rest of the time? The rest of the time, I think I made the only choice I could live with. Revenge would have been satisfying, but it would have made me into him. Cold, empty, incapable of seeing people as human." She looked at Ava. "I wanted justice for Perkins, but I also wanted to stay myself. And those two things barely coexist." Ava absorbed this. "Did father change? Really?" "I don't know. I hear things, that he lives quietly in Scotland, that he writes letters to the families of people he harmed, that he's trying to make amends." Serafina paused. "But I also know that people don't truly change. They just become aware of who they've always been." "That's cynical. That's realistic." Rhys appeared on the terrace, carrying wine. The months in Italy had softened him slightly less haunted, more present. "Dinner in an hour," he said, pouring glasses. "Ava, your Latin tutor is waiting." Ava groaned, but stood. "I'll never escape education, will I?" "Never," Serafina said, smiling. The girl left. Rhys sat beside Serafina, his scarred hand finding hers. "You're writing to him again," he observed. "Yes. Will you send it this time? Maybe? I don't know." Serafina stared at the letter. "Part of me wants him to know we're safe, that Ava is thriving, that we survived. And the other part? The other part wants him to wonder, to never know if we're all right, to live with the uncertainty the way Perkins lived with fear before he died." Rhys squeezed her hand. "Whatever you choose, I support you. Even though you think I was too merciful?" "I think," Rhys said carefully, "that you were more merciful than he deserved. But I also think that mercy was the only thing that let you sleep at night, and I'm grateful you can sleep. Because I couldn't bear watching you destroy yourself for revenge." Serafina leaned against him. "Do you think we'll ever stop talking about him?" "Eventually. Give it time." "How much time?" Rhys smiled. "However long it takes. We have all the time in the world now." They sat together as the Roman sun set, two damaged people who'd survived their revenge and found something unexpected on the other side. Not redemption, not absolution, but possibility. Serafina looked at the letter one more time. Then she folded it carefully and placed it in the drawer with all the others she'd never sent. Maybe someday she would. Maybe she wouldn't. Either way, she was free to choose. And that freedom, that simple, hard-won freedom to choose her own path, was worth more than revenge could ever be. Epilogue, 7 years later. Ava married a kind Italian merchant at 20. Rhys gave her away. Serafina stood in the back, watching the girl she'd saved become a woman who could save herself. The Duke did not attend. He had written to Ava once, 4 years earlier, a letter asking forgiveness, explaining his exile, hoping she was well. Ava had not responded, but she had kept the letter. Serafina had seen it, tucked in Ava's desk drawer. After the wedding, Serafina and Reese walked along the Roman streets toward home. "Do you ever wonder what became of him?" Reese asked. "Sometimes. Have you heard anything?" "He's still in Scotland, still alive, still writing his letters of apology." Serafina paused. "Someone told me he's begun teaching ethics at a small university." Reese raised an eyebrow. "The Duke of Blackwell teaching ethics. That's rich." "Former Duke. And yes, it's either the height of irony or the beginning of actual change." "Which do you think it is?" Serafina considered. "Both, probably. He'll never be good, but he might become less monstrous, and maybe that's enough." "Is it enough for you?" "It has to be, because I'm done letting him occupy space in my head, done analyzing whether he's changed, whether I made the right choice, whether Perkins would approve." She stopped walking. "Perkins is dead. The Duke is exiled. I'm alive. That's all that matters." Reese pulled her close. "I'm glad you're alive." "So am I." They walked home through streets that had become familiar to a life they'd built from the ashes of revenge. That night, Serafina finally sent a letter to the Duke. Not the ones she'd written over the years. Those were therapy, catharsis, rage on paper. This one was different. "Reginald, Ava married today. She's happy, safe, far from your influence and mine. She's become exactly what neither of us could have been whole. I hear you're teaching ethics. I don't know if that's penance or delusion, but I hope for the sake of your students that you tell them the truth, that good intentions justify nothing, that power without accountability destroys everything, that the people you harm in pursuit of your goals are not acceptable losses. They are losses you must carry forever. I will never forgive you for Perkins, but I also will never regret giving you the chance to face what you'd become. Because in forcing you to reckon with your crimes, I also forced myself to reckon with mine. And we both survived that reckoning. I don't wish you happiness. I wish you honesty. With yourself, with your students, with the families you destroyed. That's all I have left to give you. S." She sealed it, addressed it, sent it before she could change her mind. 3 months later, a response arrived. She almost didn't open it, but Reese found her staring at the envelope and said quietly, "Whatever's inside won't change who you are now. You're safe from him. Open it or don't, but do it because you choose to, not because you're afraid." Serafina opened it. The letter was short. "Serafina, thank you for telling me about Ava. I'm glad she's well. You asked me to be honest. So here is my honesty. I think about Perkins Hale every day, not abstractly, not as past mistakes or regrettable necessities. I see his face. I imagine his pain. I carry the weight of having ended a brilliant life because I was afraid. I teach ethics now because I am the perfect example of what not to become. My students learn more from my failures than they ever could from my successes. This is my penance to spend whatever years remain showing others how easily good men become monsters when they value power over people. I do not ask for forgiveness. I do not deserve it. But I wanted you to know that your choice to let me confess instead of simply destroying me saved something I didn't know could be saved. Not my reputation, not my power, my capacity to feel shame. That is the greatest gift and the greatest curse you could have given me. I hope you have found peace. You deserved it far more than I deserved mercy. R." Serafina read it 3 times. Then she walked to the fire and held the letter above the flames. She stood there for a long moment. Then she folded it carefully and placed it in her desk drawer. Not as absolution, not as forgiveness, but as proof that sometimes the hardest victories are the ones where nobody wins and everybody survives to live with the consequences. Outside, the Italian sun set over Rome. Inside, Serafina Hale, survivor of her own revenge, architect of impossible justice, sat with the man she loved and the life she'd built. And for the first time since Perkins died screaming in the rain 8 years earlier, she felt something that might, eventually, become peace. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. And that was enough. She opened her desk drawer one more time and pulled out a blank sheet of paper. This time she wrote without invisible ink, without code, just truth. "Dear Perkins," I finished it. Not the way you would have wanted, not with his head on a spike or his empire burned to ash, but I finished it. He confessed, he faced judgment, he lost everything, and I survived. I hope that's enough. I hope wherever you are, you understand why I chose mercy over vengeance. Because you always said the hardest thing about justice is knowing when to stop. I stopped before I became him. I stopped before I lost myself completely. I stopped because I remembered something you told me once. The point of fighting monsters isn't to become one. It's to prove they don't get to define what humanity means. I proved it, Perkins. I'm still human. And I'm finally free. I love you, I miss you, and I'm sorry it took me so long to say goodbye. But I'm saying it now. Goodbye. Your sister? She folded the letter carefully. Then she walked to the terrace where Reese was watching the sunset, wrapped her arms around him from behind, and let herself feel the weight of the past finally lifting. It's done, she whispered. Reese turned and pulled her close. What's done? All of it. The revenge, the justice, the guilt. She looked up at him. I'm ready to let it go now. He kissed her forehead. Then, let it go. And she did. Not all at once, not perfectly, but day by day, choice by choice, breath by breath, she let it go. Far away in Scotland, in a small stone cottage overlooking Grey Cliffs, a man who was no longer a duke sat at a desk covered in student papers. He was grading essays on moral philosophy. One student had written, "The difference between justice and revenge is that justice seeks to restore balance, while revenge seeks to create pain. Both can look identical from the outside. The distinction is only visible to the person choosing." The man Reginald Ford, formerly Duke of Blackwell, wrote in the margin, "Excellent, but you've missed something. Sometimes the person choosing can't see the distinction either. Sometimes they only discover which one they chose by looking back at what they've become." He set down his pen and walked to the window. Outside, the Scottish wind howled across empty moors that looked nothing like Yorkshire, but felt close enough to remind him of everything he'd lost, and everything he'd deserved to lose. He thought of Seraphina, of Ava, of Perkins Hale dying in the rain, and he did what he did every morning. He remembered, not because it gave him peace, but because forgetting would be worse than any punishment the law could inflict. The Duke bought her life with her brother's blood. She erased his existence with something more powerful than revenge. The truth. And in the end, they both survived. Changed, damaged, haunted, but alive. And sometimes, that's the only victory that matters.